I just realized that all of that was I was muted. All right, what's going on, Marvelites? We are talking about Marvel Cinematic Universe news, updates, and rumors. Mo, thank you for letting me know that you cannot hear me. Hopefully, you can hear me now. I am looking at making this a regular thing on Fridays at noon or around noon. And yeah, we're just here to talk about MCU news, updates, and kind of actually what's happening and going on in the MCU. Because otherwise, we're just left with all this stuff on social media, and I'm just trying to compile it all together and give us a place where we can share it all together. So, first on the list, as purported by the thumbnail, Marvel Studios is leaving the U.S. for its film production, most notably Atlanta, which is where most of the film production has been happening for Marvel, as well as lots of other shows and just productions in general. And even though this may not necessarily affect Marvel Studios and their output, because they're going to other places, right? They're going to the UK. We know that they've been filming a lot for Doomsday in the UK, as well as Spider-Man Brand New Day has been filming in the UK. All of this has to do with the fact that the US is just getting more and more expensive. And it's really a darn shame that they're leaving, because that's obviously generating tons of revenue for the local area, being Atlanta as well as Georgia, but also the United States. And part of it has to do with the healthcare, because they're required to provide healthcare for their employees, and it's way too expensive here. And they're like, well, might as well go somewhere where it's already kind of implemented into society, and we're going to save some money, which just, makes sense. What's going on, everyone? If you have thoughts, opinions, put them in the chat. We will talk about them. Whatever you want to do. Mo, Claude, Super J, thank you all for being here. But that is kind of the biggest news that I think is going to be, really affecting more so the U.S. economy than Marvel Studios, because it's not really going to affect that. Now, is it going to just be films? I haven't read too much into this. It said films, so I'm not necessarily sure if that's going to apply to like TV productions, Disney Plus productions, like Daredevil Born Again just filmed in New York earlier this year. Now, if they're not going to film in New York again, that is yet to see. I'm assuming that they're still going to film in New York, just because of it's probably the best thing that they could do for the show, but who knows? Yeah, Mo, only if we had a way to make healthcare not a part of employment. Only if. It would just, make life so much easier. Claude, makes sense that they'd want to film in first world countries instead of the U.S. LA is rolling out more tax incentives to bring productions back to the city, which is good. And I think that's why a lot of people went to Atlanta, to my understanding as well. There's a lot of tax incentives there for, obviously film productions and whatnot. And if they either ran out or it's just getting too expensive now, it's just obviously they're going to leave and go somewhere else. Next on the list, this is somewhat of a rumor, but we're trying to stick with just true news for right now. But according to Nexus Point News, Daredevil Born Again is anticipating on starting filming season 3 in March of 2026. This obviously bodes good news for Daredevil Born Again fans and just MCU fans in general, that we're anticipating of getting season 2 in February, March of 2026. And if they're aiming to start filming just pretty much how it was earlier this year, as the show was wrapping up, for season 3, we know that we're going to end up getting a season 3, which is good to hear and good to know. Obviously, that again, lets us know that there's going to be a continuation of the show as we watch season 2, which is always good. So expect a lot of cliffhangers at the end, would be my guess. checking in on the chat. Yeah, obviously it doesn't matter where anything is filmed. It matters more so in terms of like obviously if it's good. But yeah, we need whatchamacallit to put healthcare. They need to require healthcare, and if it's too expensive here for them to provide healthcare, which that is probably besides salaries the next biggest expense for business. Is besides covering like all the other taxes and stuff like that on part of the employee, the next biggest thing is going to be healthcare. Yeah, and then Mo put in true. Trump was talking about putting tariffs on movies produced overseas. So who knows? He's just going to put on whatever tariffs on whatever he wants to put on at this point. So we'll just figure it out as things are going. Yeah, that is also a good question as terms of Daredevil, Mo. I wonder how much more money they're going to invest in that show, because I would agree. I don't think it was a ratings juggernaut. Like, from my understanding, it seemed like most people who were talking about it were already MCU fans. I feel like it didn't get pushed beyond into the general and broad audience. That is going to be a good question. So I don't know if I have a good answer, but we'll move on to the next thing here, and that is Doomsday. We've had Kevin Feige, in a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter, said that the Doomsday script is still being revised while filming. Oh, wrong one. While filming. This, if you didn't read more into this, this could be viewed as not a very good thing. And while it seems that may not be good, the truth of the matter is, he says later on in the interview that there's a lot of things happening, and it sounds like he's allowing the actors who are portraying these characters, especially if they've been portraying them a long time, to kind of ad-lib and add things in for their character, for their scene, anything along those lines. Because he said that there's plussing. This is Kevin Feige. He said that there's plussing happening every day. And when basically, now I'm summarizing, that these actors have been playing these characters for such a long time. If they have a good idea, we're open to hearing what they're going to add to that. Again, my guess is that this is more so like ad-libbing or doing certain things in terms of a scene, not necessarily overall changing the script. A lot of people have taken this kind of a different way in terms of saying like, this is just not, they're changing the script dramatically as they're still filming, meaning like things are just not going the way that they're planning. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Checking back in on the chat before we move on. Yeah, I agree with Claude, right? They definitely need to do something to drive production costs down with how things have been performing financially. Yeah, I'm hoping that Marvel, I want to trust Marvel on Doomsday. A lot of people are saying it's going to end up being a cameo fest. We'll see. Who knows? Modern Protector, what's up? What is going on, man? Good to have you here. The next thing on the list, we've gotten a confirmed amount for Fantastic Four First Steps at the box office, and they have grossed $490 million worldwide with the $200 million budget. Going back to Claude's comment on like driving production costs down, I think part of one of the best things that films can do is have these practical effects, which in reality you would think that having practical effects that were done in Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four would cost more money than sitting them in front of a green screen, but that's just not the case. And I have to say, I prefer the practical effects that we got to see in Fantastic Four, in Thunderbolts, and even going back further, like Agatha All Along, they pretty much prided themselves on having all practical effects, with the exception of, I want to say, like that broomstick riding scene, which you could tell was obviously like CGI, right? But like, that's one way to drive production costs down, and I think that's going to be huge. Mo said, cost of production is a catch-22, right? Fair pay in big cities means labor costs will be high. At some point, we have to accept that these things can't be made cheaply without shorting labor. And that's also true. So overall, Fantastic Four going back to their box office, we got those numbers. Technically, they're net positive on the film. However, a lot of people were expecting it to be much higher. There was that big drop off. I don't know exactly what it is. I still really think that the movie going experience has significantly changed since COVID, and people need to have different expectations. We also can't expect everything to be making near $1 billion. All right, next up, Jake Schreier has confirmed that work on the next X-Men film has begun. It has been obviously confirmed that Jake Schreier is the director of the first X-Men reboot film for the MCU. He had a really good film with the Thunderbolts, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does for the first X-Men film. Obviously, we know the mutants are coming, and it's going to be a really big thing to have the mutants back into the MCU. So it's good to see that they're starting to work on that production. Next, we have more Doomsday news, not necessarily news, but in an interview, Tenoch Huerta, who plays Namor, basically said that basically every character is going to have a smaller role in Avengers Doomsday. And again, people are blowing this out of proportion, and this obviously makes sense, right? We're having tons of characters. We're basically setting up for Secret Wars. In fact, people are probably going to have even smaller roles in Secret Wars, with the exception of, say, Doom, probably the Fantastic Four, mainly Reed, and a few others. And it just makes sense, right? Like, we're now starting to combine all these universes, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And it's just going to be, it just is what it is. Like, I'm not expecting Namor to have a ton of screen time in Avengers Doomsday. It's cool that he's going to be in it, but I'm not expecting him to have a ton of screen time. All right, after that, I think most of us know the Thunderbolts is now streaming on Disney+. It is currently, I believe it was last night when I checked and I started streaming it or watching it with my wife. She's watching it for the first time, but she had a long day. We stopped like 30 minutes in. It is the number one movie on Disney Plus / Hulu right now. And of course, we've got a lot of people coming in and saying, hey, this movie was pretty darn good. Like, yes, please go and support these movies before they go to streaming. That way we don't have all this nonsense that we're dealing with in terms of people not liking the movies. Anyway, here we are. But go check it out if you haven't. It is a really good movie. Please watch it. It is definitely more than just superheroes beating each other up. I think the next piece of news is definitely going to give us a little bit of insight to how maybe predatory Marvel was with its actors, and it's kind of sad to hear and see. But we had Kumail Nanjiani, who played Kingo in the Eternals, say in an interview that he signed on to work with Marvel for 6 movies, to play Kingo in 6 movies and a video game. That is absolutely absurd. One, the fact that most actors and characters haven't even been in 6 movies for a long time is absolutely wild. And I think that really set him up for a lot of stuff in his head, right? And I think he even said in the interview that he basically was dealing with a lot of mental health stuff because, it obviously turned out that he's not going to be in, or at least, be in 6 movies and a video game. Who knows what's going to happen moving forward? But man, talk about some stuff of like Marvel being like, probably to get people to sign on to work with them and then not fulfilling on their promises, which is really, really crappy. we're gonna go over the comments, the chat real quick. Um, yeah, I agree with Mo. Fantastic Four wasn't a must-watch for casuals. That's obviously going to be different for Doomsday. I feel like since that's going to be a big one, RDJ's coming back. A lot of people know him. They're definitely going to probably show out for that. Kind of like Deadpool and Wolverine would be my guess. Not necessarily wrong, Will, on the box office drop that Fantastic Four, was their third iteration. I think people still maybe had a bad taste in their mouth from previous Fantastic Four movies. And yeah, agree, Mo. Streaming and just the change of the movie theater experience and streaming in general since COVID has changed how we as a society view movies. I'm also excited for X-Men to come to the MCU. I'm excited to see what Jake Schreier does with it. Mo, yes, I did have the thirst trap for Namor. It was the easiest one to put up. I didn't want to get his little ankle wings. Yeah, Mo, going back to Kumail Nanjiani talking about being on the hook for lots of movies and other things, right? Like, it's just if Marvel wants to use them in a future film, which is kind of crazy. Claude, they have to go back and add him to all the MCU films. Release the Kingo cuts, yes. Claude, you haven't seen Fantastic Four? That's okay, man. I know you were in a move and you did, doing lots of other things, so that's fair. Also summer, right? Like, well, summer's a big time for movies, but summer with a family is also can be crazy. All right, and then last but not least, for the actual news, we have Brand New Day. Jackie Chan and his stunt team said that they are working on Spider-Man Brand New Day. Given the fact that we're dealing with, what's his name? Oh my goodness. Daniel Destin Cretton on this film, and just the photos that we've seen for like the action shots with Spider-Man, this movie is going to be really good. And given with what we got in Shang-Chi, the fight scenes in that, it's going to be so good. And we're going to have Jackie Chan on this too, and his stunt team working on that, which I'm assuming, is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with this film. It's been really good to see. Yeah, I agree, Super J. Spider-Man is going to get those good fight scenes. It's going to be really good. All right, that ends it for the news. We are going to move on to rumors. Now, as always, take these with a grain of salt. These are from just stupid scoopers, but I feel like they're worth mentioning just for the sheer fact of, one, they could be crazy, but also just to not get confused with actual news and updates that are happening for the MCU. So with that being said, we have Star-Lord is supposedly going to be forming a new team in the MCU. Who the heck knows if that's even the case? I honestly, it did say that we were going to end up seeing Star-Lord again at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but whatever, it's fine. If we see him, I'm okay with it. If we don't see him, I'm also okay with it. I could honestly at this point, give or take, Star-Lord, it's not the end of the world. Let's go back to the chat real quick. Jackie Chan's stunt team means we're gonna see Peter get knocked around and comedically whoop ass. Honestly, that's a good thing. I couldn't agree more. Oh, we will definitely do that, Mo. I'm saving that towards the end. And then Claude, I really wish the Spider-Man would have been a Shang-Chi team up, given the director. That would be amazing. Yes. All right, next, Chris Pratt. Yeah, it's just all these people just keep revealing their true selves, and it is what it is. Supposedly, a Judgment Day project is in the works at the MCU. Judgment Day was a part of a crossover event in the comics that basically where the mutant resurrection protocols were found out or revealed, and there was a big kind of cross event and people getting angry with each other between the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Eternals. So I can see how this somewhat makes sense, or how people are maybe kind of making this a rumor, because, you know, all these things are happening within the MCU at some point. Obviously, if this is true, I have no idea, right? But we will see. After that, another rumor: the Skrulls story will continue in the next phase of the MCU, which at this point, I'm kind of over the Skrulls. The whole Secret Invasion thing was not great. Given the fact that we're introducing the X-Men and we know that that is going to be happening, I think we should kind of just let the Skrull thing kind of die out, or at least remain in the background for a while, and just like, let's just focus on the mutants and the X-Men and bring them into this entire universe with everything else that's going on. After that, the next rumor is, you know, most of us are big fans, or at least love Groot, especially when he's little Groot, although even big Groot is great, right? He's obviously been a big fan favorite of kids. And with that, and Guardians kind of potentially leaving the MCU for the time being, Marvel needs to replace that lovable character with another lovable character, and that is supposedly going to be Jeff the Landshark. I couldn't think of a better replacement for Groot. How they incorporate Jeff the Landshark is going to be very interesting, but I do think it is a great call. While we go check on the chat, I do not have HBO either, and I have not been watching Peacemaker. I've been hearing wonderful things and been seeing great things about it on Threads, and I feel like I'm missing out. I will have to at some point get it. Claude, I think that's probably makes the most sense in terms of the Skrulls. Any Skrull involvement will probably be just as another space faction as the Shi'ar show up, and I think that makes the most sense. And we can eventually get there with the X-Men, bringing the X-Men in, and then their connection to the Shi'ar obviously makes the most sense. Okay. Next supposed rumor, however, tends to make sense, is Doomsday is supposedly going to be taking place within 4 different universes. We obviously have the main 616, if that's what you still want to qualify it as, in the MCU. Then we also have Earth 838, which we saw in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And then we also have Earth 828, which we just saw in Fantastic Four First Steps. What that 4th universe is questionable. My guess is it could be the Fox X-Men universe, or the universe that we saw Tiana Paris. Why can't I think of her name right now? Her character's name. You know who I'm talking about, that we saw at the end of Marvels, where she ended up in. Although that is also supposedly the Fox X-Men universe. So those are probably the 4. That would be my guess. It's probably the truth, and we will just obviously have to wait and see. The last rumor that I thought that was even just worth mentioning is Chris Evans has supposedly begun filming his scenes for Avengers Doomsday, and one of those is including a scene with Haley Atwell, aka Peggy Carter. So those are the rumors. That's what we have going on in the Marvel universe. And as Mo had mentioned earlier in the chat, before we move forward, today we have The Comic Shop, which is a workplace kind of documentary, mockumentary, kind of in the style of The Office, Parks and Rec, is going to be going live with its first episode, its pilot episode, today on YouTube. It's completely free for you to watch. Obviously, you'll get ads if you don't have YouTube Premium, and that's all you need is YouTube. It's going live at 2 p.m. Eastern, I believe. Mo is going to be live threading it along with Fantastic Frankie and Blurred Without Fear. It's going to be, I think, absolutely dope. Please go ahead and watch it if you have the time. If you don't have the time to watch it at 2, please watch it at some point later today. I can't imagine the first episode is going to be much longer than 30 minutes. That would be my guess. But go ahead and support an independent creator talking about nerdy things in a style that has done very well in terms of TV in kind of like workplace mockumentary kind of style. Before we end the live stream, let's just go back to the chat. James Gunn will forever be one of the biggest bag fumbles in the history of Marvel Studios. 100%. The fact that they like kicked him out initially and then they're like, oh shoot, Claude for the universe will be Madam Web. Please no. Please no. And yes, more Haley Atwell is always a good thing. That is also true, Mo. I did think about including that rumor that RDJ and Ryan Reynolds supposedly had a conflict on set. That makes, if there's going to be two people that were going to butt heads, that makes the most sense, right? Like RDJ kind of really headstrong set in his ways, kind of almost very Tony Stark-ish. And then Ryan Reynolds just is also the same way, kind of very bullheaded and stubborn. And I can see that coming across and being a true thing. I don't know what it's about. Either way, it's whatever. I mean, at this point, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no other thoughts on that besides just whatever. Let them fight. Sometimes people just need a good punch, whether it's to do it to someone or to get hit. Sometimes that's what someone needs. I don't know if I buy it either, to be honest, which is why I don't know if I wanted to include it. Obviously, it is a rumor, so it doesn't matter. But they are, I would imagine, both alphas on set, and those things could kind of not go over so well with folks. But other than that, those are the MCU news updates and rumors. I appreciate y'all showing up live for this. I am going to try to make this a weekly thing around noon, unless life and family things happen. Again, thank y'all for being here. I am trying to keep these relatively short, like 30 minutes or so, and we're pretty much right there. So thank y'all for being here. Make sure you check Mo out later. I believe he's going live at 3, maybe. What time are you going live, Mo? 3 to do Supercast. And then don't forget, 2 o'clock is when the comic shop premieres. Make sure you go ahead and check that out. $3 p.m. Eastern, everyone. There's a lag, so Supercast with Mo, Blurred Force 1, and Polly co-mixed. They're going live at 3 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, everyone have a great weekend, and Excelsior.